Welcome to episode 67 on the law rapport. Today we're going to deal with the issue of exceptional circumstances in firearm offenses, especially in sentencing. And in episode 31, we previously dealt with this issue. This is a revisit due to the public scrutiny over exceptional circumstances being applied, allegedly, it seems, to the public only in cases where tourists are involved. Before I get into the meat of the discussions, my usual disclaimer: this is not legal advice, should not be construed as such. For legal advice, please contact an attorney of your choice. Welcome back. Before I continue, let me get this out of the way. There's a myth that is circulating, especially in Turks and Caicos Islands, that the judiciary is beyond reproach and the judiciary and the court is beyond criticism. This is a myth, and nothing could be further from the truth. There are numerous case laws littered through the judicial annals where the court itself welcomed criticism and where it states that criticism, constructive criticism of the judiciary, is healthy in a democratic society. And this notion that the court cannot defend itself or the court cannot speak out is baloney. According to an article in the TC Weekly News dated the 18th of August 2023, headlined "American Tourists Get Slap on the Wrist for Illegal Gun and Ammunition Possession. Lawyer Pleads Exceptional Circumstances." The article states that Alex Keith Nash, an American citizen, is free as a board and is now back in his home country, having paid a fine of $5,000 for an offense that typically carries a 12-year prison term in the Turks and Caicos Islands. That his lawyer, Ms. Sheena Mayer, argued exceptional circumstances after he pleaded guilty to the offense of possession of firearm and illegal ammunition amounting to 12 rounds. The article states that Judge Chris Solichan imposed a fine of $5,000 or 60 days imprisonment after hearing arguments from the defense and the prosecution. According to the lawyer for the defendant, the American tourist traveled to the Turks and Caicos Island with his weapon without incident. Upon arrival at the airport, he reportedly picked up his luggage, in which the weapon was stored in a locked box, and proceeded to enjoy his vacation in the islands. The lawyer said that Nash did not try to conceal the weapon when traveling in and out of the Turks and Caicos Islands, and he made inquiries and was apparently given the wrong information. According to the article, the attorney submitted to the court a number of cases in which defendants charged with gun possession were only fined under exceptional circumstances application. However, according to the article, Prosecutor Clement Joseph reportedly argued that exceptional circumstances should not apply in Nash's case, as all persons charged with illegal firearm and ammunition must be imprisoned. He asserted that the possession of a gun licensed in the United States should not qualify as an exceptional circumstance here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, where such weapon is unregistered. The article went on to state that the prosecutor, Mr. Joseph, also pointed out the preferential treatment afforded to foreigners found in possession of illegal firearms when brought before the court, highlighting the stark difference in similar matters involving locals. According to the article, Joseph's sentiments were shared by residents and social media who expressed their shock and disgust at the fine. The article concluded that the judge was not swayed by Joseph's arguments, deciding that exceptional circumstance existed, granted Nash an escape from the mandatory sentence of 12 years. In another article on the 22nd of May 2003 in the Sun TCI Online edition, it appears that an American visitor who was caught with 44 rounds of ammunition at the Providenciales International Airport while leaving the Turks and Caicos Islands was fined $5,670 forthwith when he appeared in the Supreme Court on Tuesday, May the 16th, 2023. David O'Connor, a businessman from New York, received a fine instead of imprisonment after Supreme Court Judge, Her Ladyship Tanya Laban Jackson, said she was satisfied there were exceptional circumstances that would permit the departure from the mandatory minimum sentence of 12 years. It appears that Mr. Joseph, the prosecutor in the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions, also appeared in this case and stated that the position of the law was that no person other than a licensed gunsmith in the course of his trade shall have in his possession, discharge or use any firearm or ammunition unless he is the holder of a firearm license with respect to such firearm, or in the case of ammunition, if he is the holder of a license for a firearm which states that ammunition. This is, in my respectful view, correct position of the law according to Section 3 of the Firearms Ordinance. However, it appears that Mr. Joseph's arguments did not sway the learned judge, who made reference to the 2019 case of Aloysius Ebner, a 73-year-old decorated U.S. Marine and avid gun collector who was fined instead of imprisoned by former Chief Justice Margaret Ramsey Hale after the police found 15 guns and 8,000 rounds of ammunition on his boat, Lucky Strike, which ran aground uninhibited Big Sun Key while he was traveling through the Turks and Caicos Islands on his way back to the USA. In that case, the former Chief Justice ruled that the boat captain did not possess the guns with any criminal intent and that there was no danger that he would have used the guns for any criminal purpose. She fined him $20,000 forthwith, or 12 months imprisonment. This article in the Sun Online, dated the 22nd of May 2023, also went on to state that Justice Laban Jackson also made reference to the case of Remand and Wood, adding that having considered all the factors, she is satisfied that there are exceptional circumstances which would permit a departure from the mandatory sentence of 12 years. She noted that O'Connor is a licensed firearm holder in 3 states in the United States of America. He did not possess ammunition with any criminal intent. He had no previous conviction under the ordinance, and that the public interest in preventing the unlawful possession and use of guns would be solved by the imposition of a lesser sentence. Let me quickly look at the case of Remand and Wood, referenced by the learned judge in the case of O'Connor. In the case of Remand and Wood, the 2005 case, Lord Wolf, Chief Justice at the time, emphasized that a holistic approach was required when deciding whether exceptional circumstances exist, and stated at paragraph 11 of the judgment the following, and I quote, "There will be cases where there is one single striking feature which relates to either the offense or the offender, which causes that case to fall within the requirement of exceptional circumstances. There can be other cases where no single factor by itself will amount to exceptional circumstances, but the collective impact of all the relevant circumstances truly makes the case exceptional." End of quote. In the case of the Queen and Davison in 2016, it was stated at paragraph 33 that it is trial law that whether there are exceptional circumstances is a fact-sensitive question, meaning that it depends on the facts and the circumstances of each individual cases, and each case should be decided according to its own merit, its own facts, and its own circumstances. Now, in the case of the Queen and Avis of 1998, the court identified 4 questions which are usually appropriate when sentencing for firearm. The court states that the sentencing judge should ask: 1. What sort of weapon was involved? 2. What use, if any, was made of the weapon? 3. With what intention did the prisoner possess the weapon? And 4. What is the defendant's record? And this was reiterated in the case of the Queen and Callahan 2018, when the court stated, "It is clear that when considering whether exceptional circumstances arise from the circumstances of such an offense, it is first of all necessary for the court to consider the 4 firearm-related questions which are set out in the case of Queen and Avis." So, it is clear that the court is saying that these questions are relevant as to sentencing, and that these questions must be considered in the wrong before the court arrive at the appropriate sentence. So where we see in both cases Justice Jackson and the former Chief Justice, Justice Hale, making mention to the defendants possessing the ammunition and firearm without any criminal intent. This was an answer to one of the questions posed in Avis. Question being, with what intention did the prisoner possess the firearm or ammunition? Now, let us look briefly at the firearms ordinance in the Turks and Caicos Islands and see what it says in relation to exceptional circumstances. Section 30 of the ordinance deals with exceptional circumstances. And what we could see from the ordinance and its face is that it sets out clearly what should not be considered as exceptional circumstances. For example, it states at section 30, subsection 4, the following shall not constitute exceptional circumstances for the purpose of section 2, justifying the imposition of a lesser sentence. A, where the person pleaded guilty to the offense, and B, whether the person materially assisted in the investigation of the offense. So, where a person pleads guilty is not a relevant consideration in relation to exceptional circumstances, and where the person assists the police could be that he assists the police in recovering additional firearms, ammunition. That should not be a relevant consideration in whether or not exceptional circumstances exist. So looking at section 30 of the Firearms Ordinance, it is clear on its face that the drafters of the legislation and the intention of the legislature is that the sentencing judge will know exceptional circumstances when he or she sees it. It is left totally up to the discretion of the judge. And if a judge refuses to grant exceptional circumstances, case laws have shown that it would only be reversed by a higher court if it is found that the judge was clearly wrong in denying exceptional circumstances. So it's clearly within the remit of the judge to make a determination once it is made in a very rational and clear manner what is and what is not exceptional circumstances. But does the public have any reasonable concern in voicing that it's only tourists who are being granted the benefit of exceptional circumstances? My answer to that will be yes. Because if you look at the cases in which exceptional circumstances are granted, it appears to lean heavily towards those who are caught in the Turks and Caicos Islands, who have traveled here either on vacation or in the case of the ex-army veteran who was shipwrecked In fact, in my view, in that case, I don't believe that that person should have ever been charged for the offense given the circumstances. But the police, having laid the charges, and the Director of Public Prosecutions or the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions deciding to proceed with the charges, the judge, in her wisdom, and quite rightfully, in my view, find that there were exceptional circumstances. In the other two cases, especially the most recent case where the defendant asserted that he was given wrong information, in my view, I believe that that case is a more difficult one to accept, that exceptional circumstances existed without more. For example, without anything from the airline accepting that they did give wrong information to the defendant, or without the defendant showing that he took all reasonable steps to contact the local authorities to find out what the local laws were in relation to bringing in firearm ammunition into the Turks and Caicos Islands. I believe that the public concern or outrage in this matter is justified. But viewers must bear in mind that I'm only reading from the news article. I do not have the full benefit of the legal arguments that were presented by the Crown or the defense, and I do not have the full benefit of the judge's reasoning. And so, if I were to see those submissions and the judge's reasoning, that could very well change my view as to whether or not exceptional circumstances really existed, and as to whether or not the judge was right or wrong. But it is not a matter of what I believe. It is solely within the purview of the judge, and the legislation gives the judge that power to determine on the facts whether or not exceptional circumstances exist. And they did find that there were exceptional circumstances in these three cases that I have read from news articles. I am on record of arguing that the penalties for possession of firearm and ammunition and firearm-related offences in Turks and Caicos are draconian, that they imprison young people for lengthy periods of time unnecessarily. It harms their rehabilitation prospects, etc. And it is right, in my view, for the public to express concern that the local laws are not working for the local people, while it is working for those that visit our shows and violate our laws. But as to whether or not the judge was right or wrong in these three instances in finding exceptional circumstances, it was solely up to the judge, having considered all the circumstances of the case, having taken a holistic approach. Here's where I will leave it for today. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and comment. But most of all, I thank you for watching.